my connection to it is that I am indigenous from the Western Hemisphere.
Why is it so important to expunge Columbus Day and pronounce Indigenous Peoples Day? What I learned in my history class was that Columbus discovered America and that was it.
Exactly. Well, the reality is that we, the Taino people, were the ones who discovered Columbus, and we end up being just a footnote in history. And that is one of the reasons why it's important for us to put ourselves in the forefront and tell the real story. The story is told by the victor. It is his story, after all, you know. But the victims of this, what we call the Holocaust, you know, are unknown. Most people don't know who the Taino were back then, who the Taino are today. We were declared extinct, and the reason for the extinction comes from many different avenues. It's not one thing that brought us to this extinction narrative, but we were declared extinct, and it wasn't until the late 90s when you know, DNA studies and things of that nature, severe, intense research brought us back to the forefront.
Because of public education, because of how our students are actually treated within classrooms, our students are going to classrooms, they're standing up for the stories and the knowledge that they've learned in homes. They're hearing these stories about Columbus, they're hearing the stories about the land that they're on, and they're actually standing up and saying, no, this is not what I was taught by my grandmother, this is not what I was taught by my mom. And sometimes they're often disciplined for that. And so in making this change from Columbus Day to Indigenous Peoples Day, we're actually affirming knowledge that's taught in the homes and being stood up for by our students and by our elders as well.
I think Americans, especially white America, considers history to be Ben Franklin, George Washington, Thomas Jefferson, and everything else. Your history goes back thousands of years.
Yes, and I am a guest on these lands. I am from the Tunica Biloxi tribe of Louisiana. Our figures, our landscape is completely different from where we are right now on the homelands of the Massachusetts, the Nipmuc, the Wampanoag. But at the same time, we have a very shared history of cultivating all of the lands that have been here since time immemorial. So, you know, we're looking at this story of 500, 200 years standing up against millennia. And you're actually seeing the people that have been here for all this time. That story is starting to come forward once and more.
We all learned that, didn't we? We all learned this BS. We learned lies, unfortunately, and we have to ask ourselves a question like, who is writing these textbooks? Who is promoting this sort of propaganda? And the answer is white supremacy. I know it's hard to hear, but that is the truth of it. And my emotional connection is that I want to end that. I want to decolonize. I want to end white supremacy. I'm an advocate and an ally, and I firmly believe that returning the land back to original land owners, to original land stewards, and working towards healing as justice and justice as healing, that's my emotional tie. And it starts with letting Indigenous people lead, even Indigenous Black and people of color leading. So that's my emotional tie. I'm here as an ally. I'm here to stand behind, support, uplift, respect, honor.
Since we're the Indigenous people, sometimes we come out to make ourselves seen and let people know we still exist. Many times people think we're in the history books, but we don't live in the present day, but we do. We have a long history.
One thing you have to understand is that Native American, Indigenous peoples' history started here first, and everything else. You can't have American history without Indigenous peoples, and that is a fact. So for people to know and not be listening to the sanitized truths or they deem as truths, the sanitized history of America, they need to look at the true history and see the role that they played in that. And then they'll see that the Native people have been here and continue to be here. And we're the Narragansett, but there's many tribes across this country where this where we live and have communities and have our own forms of government and exist and flourish today.